And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
This is Mythic Battles! Woo! As the oiled, super strong Greek soldiers fight against really evil, gross-looking demonic stuff that looks like it's from Hellraiser. Some really spectacular artwork here, although maybe too spectacular in some places. This is a two-player tactical miniature game, except instead of using miniatures, you're using little discs of the people moving around the board. And you also have a deck of cards that show you the stats of each of those people you move around. It's fairly light, but it has some mechanics that I've not seen before in games. Let's take a look. Mythic Battles comes with a scenario booklet, and you can go through this scenario booklet, which adds actually a few rules to the basic game, and you can play the different scenarios in here which tell you exactly what to do. And there are 9 different scenarios you can play through, but you do not have to play through the scenarios. Indeed, you can play just a regular game. To do that, you're going to put 4 of these boards together. These boards are double-sided, and there's 6 different boards, so you'll be able to pick the board you want and set it up. Each board has different spots and nice artwork on it, but if you look closely here, you'll see that there's icons, and that tells you what type of terrain it is. And some terrains block line of sight, some you can't move into, some you can't shoot through, things like that. So you're going to build that, and then each player is going to pick their units. Their units are basically coins that you'll be, or round discs that you'll be using, and these discs have a picture of the unit, a name of that unit, and then an arrow on the unit, and that arrow basically shows which direction it is, whether it's on your team or your opponent's team, and if it's a blue arrow, that means they're a flyer. The rest of the stats are on the cards, and that's what I wanted to focus on here. Here you can see some of the cards that are included with the game. And when you start the game, you're going to be building an army of your cards. You build from one of the types. You can build from Hades' army here, or you can build from the Greek army, the Athena's army. And there's also neutral units, although in this initial game there's only the Nemean lion, just one neutral unit. When you add these to a game, you'll be looking at the stats in the cards. So let's look here at the lion stats. There's a little white number up here. That's how many points it costs to put them into your army. For a basic game, you have 100 points in your army. You have to have at least 5 units, and you can't have more than 10. The other things that you'll be looking at are up here. That's how much health the unit has. Underneath it is the movement. The big number is how far you can move if you're also attacking. The little white number is if you decide not to attack, that's how far. Then the 2 numbers underneath that are ranged attack, this one here, and melee attack. And you can see he rolls 6 dice in melee. Then he has a defense number of 8. And then he has points down here that are 4, and we'll talk about those points later on. That's not nearly as important. And then there's some special abilities. You can see that the lion here has scout and endurance, and the book has a whole pile of different abilities that you have to go through and look and see what each of them does. Now, when you put the cards of your army in front of you, you are not going to be putting just this one Nemean lion card. You get a whole stack of cards. And the reason for that is when this lion takes damage, you will take damage by putting the cards underneath like that. So when he has taken 2 damage, his stats will change. In fact, let's take a closer look at 6, 5, 4, 3. We'll look at these stats here that are in the middle. As you can see, when he takes a wound from 6 to 5, he also loses 1 attack. Down here it goes to 5. He will also, his defense goes from an 8 to a 7. And his special abilities actually change. He actually has Rage of the Lion. That wasn't a special ability that he had before. And so stats will go down, although they occasionally can go up as someone gets wounded. And once you take enough wounds, you are dead. Now, some of the cards are exactly the same. You can see here the hoplites. There's 3 different hoplites that Athena can use in her army, and they are exactly the same. The only difference is the picture. That's so you can differentiate them on the board. Just like that, the bad guys have Infernal Marauders, and there's 3 different cards. And again, the stats are exactly the same. Now, these stats also have, sometimes they have a plus next to them. So you see these Infernal Marauders, when they're in melee, there's a little plus blue sign next to the melee attack. And that means they can pay a power point to increase that by 1. So sometimes different people will be able to increase their defense, their attack. There's different things that you can increase with these power points. Also, the special abilities that they have will also cost power points. You can see here, mobility, track, and retreat all have different costs worth of power points. They are a little small, hard to read. I don't know why they made them so small. You will get power points through various ways during the course of the game, which usually involves discarding cards. We'll come to that in a moment, but before we talk about the cards, I would like to talk about how one unit attacks another unit. So let's say I am taking the Infernal Marauders here, and I'm attacking Cerberus. Now, the Infernal Marauders, they have 4, but I'll pay an extra power point to take 5 dice, and we're going against Cerberus. So Cerberus, when I look at his thing, he can add 1 to his defense number, so he does. He pays a power point and increases that to 9. So I need to roll 9s on these dice. Now, these dice have blank sides and then 1 through 5. Well, I get to attack him with 5 dice and I need 9, so I roll. Now, it's pretty obvious, I think, that I'm not going to roll any 9s. That's right. But what I am trying to roll is 5s. It's the highest number I can roll, and any 5 can be re-rolled. I can also discard a 1 through 4 to add 1 to a number. So I'm going to discard this 1 and change this number also to a 5. I'll put these aside for now. Now I re-roll my 5s. This is a 5 plus 5, that's a 10. And this is a 5 plus 4, that's another 10. So I have gotten 2 hits on Cerberus from rolling those 2 dice. I could discard this 2 and change this 2 to a 3, but I wouldn't be able to re-roll it, so that's kind of pointless. However, if the second time I had rolled a 1, then I could have maybe used those to add to that. So again, let's say I'm attacking him a second time, another time. If you roll a blank is immediately discarded. And then I use this 1 to change this 4 to a 5. I'm trying to get 9s again, so I re-roll the 5s. 5 plus 2 is 7. Even if I add that 3, if I add 1 more to this one by discarding the 3, that will still only make an 8, so therefore I missed. As soon as you roll a blank, it's gone. It's dead. A 5 re-rolled is still a complete miss. So that's how attacking works. You can use, sometimes there's a possibility of counterattacking, especially in melee combat. And all that comes into effect with these cards. These are action cards, and you're going to get action cards for each of the units that you build. You just find the cards that match your unit. Some units have 3, some units have 2, a few units have 4, and you get more action cards probably based on the mobility. And you're going to form a deck with these cards, and you're also going to put in that deck 10 Art of War cards. And you'll shuffle your deck and you will draw cards at the beginning of your turn. When you draw Art of War cards, you'll place them face up in front of you, but the rest make up your hand. On your turn, you have to move somebody, but you can move more than one person. When you move somebody, you will discard a card for that person, and then you can move and or attack with them. If you attack someone in close combat and they have a card of the person you're attacking, they can discard a card to fight against you. However, they must also discard one of their Art of War cards in front of them. Art of War cards can be used for multiple purposes. You can pay 1 to move a second unit. You can pay 2 to move a third unit. You can pay 3 to move a fourth unit. And I think that's pretty much all you'll be able to do, because paying 4 to move a fourth unit is expensive, and you would have to have a lot of cards in front of you. These cards can also be discarded for points. When I discard a card from my hand, I'm not going to use them at all. I can discard them. I will get power points equal to that character's power points, and that's noted on the card. So you can see if I discard an Infernal Marauder card from my hand, I'll get 3 power points. And again, power points are used to increase stats and use special abilities. And so you will continue fighting back and forth, doing ranged attacks, doing melee attacks. At a certain point, one army is going to be down to only 3 units, and then the other army wins. So you don't need to kill all your opponents. So if they have some really powerful people and a whole pile of weak ones, if you kill enough of their weak units, you can win. The scenarios might have different specific things that you will add to the game, but that's kind of a basic overview of how the game works. It's interesting, when I played Mythic Battles with people, one of the first things we said to one another was, this could be a clicks game, because as you take the cards and put them on the bottom, and the stats change. Great idea. But hasn't WizKids already done that with their clicky bases? When you take damage, you click, and then your stats change. Now, there are more stats and more special abilities on the card. You couldn't put all the information on a click style, I don't think. I'm sure WizKids could figure out a way. I do like the artwork, like I said at the beginning. I think it's neat, although like some of the bad guys are just gross. You know, they're frightening to look at. It would be neat if there were miniatures to move around the board, but I do know that that would raise the cost of the game tremendously. I almost wish there had been cardboard stand-up things to move around instead of the discs. It just would feel, as I would look around the board, and I didn't feel a sense of, like when you fought against Cerebrus, you know, you want to feel him smashing his way across the field, or the giant lion, or the winged creatures. It was hard to get a kind of a concept. The winged creatures having a blue arrow on them didn't really, I don't know, the board itself just was bland to me. The cards themselves, I really like the mechanic. One mechanic I very much enjoyed was the dice rolling. I enjoyed having to get 7s or 8s, and the highest your dice go to is 5, but if you roll 5, you can re-roll again, and you can use other dice to force re-rolls. Nobody in this game was impervious. And the special abilities, yes, your first several games, you're constantly looking them up. What does this do? What does that do? But once you know what they do, it's very interesting. This was obviously built with expansions in mind, because they tell you to build armies, and, well, if you play a traditional game, you're going to be using a good chunk of everything that's in this box. That's fine. I think there's enough variety in this box that if you got just Mythic Battles, you would be fine. Not to mention there's a scenario book where you can go through and play with very exacting things to go against the other players. Although I enjoyed, the scenario book was okay, I enjoyed just taking and building my army and going up against somebody else. So, where do I put it in the realm of all these card combats and miniature combat games that are in existence? Well, I think it's a good one, but there's lots of better ones. I think this will appeal to some people. Like I said, the dice is a neat concept to re-roll the dice. So that's a positive in this. The cards and how the stats change as people get wounded. That's also a positive effect. And the artwork is a positive effect. It's just that the game itself, the card play from the hand, there's just, I don't know, it works. But there's nothing that I was sitting there going, wow, that's just so awesomely cool. Let's play it again. It's good, but not fantastic. And maybe that's good enough for you, and maybe that's something that you would enjoy, and if you watched how I played it, there's probably some people out there who are really going to love this game. And I think that the possibility for it to increase with expansions is high. I mean, probably when there's 20, 30 more units and things, the mixtures will be good, and maybe they'll come out with stand-up counters. That to me, that would really help visually looking at the game. So as it is, I would not turn down a game of this, but if I'm picking the game, I might pick something else that will offer me a better visual and more of a wow factor than this one. The theme also, you know, the Spartans versus monsters, it certainly seems to be, you know, a homage to 300. But I think some people will like that, and some people will be, you know, it's taking it out of the realm of regular troops and put it in fantasy, so there's that, you know, that might be a positive or negative to you. So I know I'm kind of waffling here on my final opinion of the game, but hopefully I've given you enough so that you can decide whether you would like it or not. Mythic Battles!
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find the latest board game news at Dicetowernews.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Fun Again Games, the world's best game source. Fun Again Games has over 5,000 games available. Check them out at funagain.com.